Natalie fell in love with acting, decided to major in theater, and is now working for a big studio, voicing characters in well-known shows. She joins the podcast today to talk about her experiences with indie film production, the struggle of comparison, and learning how to dub in anime. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Tell me who you are and how you got involved in voice acting.
So my name is Nataly DeVous. Almost exactly a year ago, I just turned a year in June, I auditioned for Sentai, and that was literally my first ever voice acting audition. I'd never auditioned for anything else. I found out about Sentai and about voice acting in Houston through Radio Lounge, and I would go to the actors meetups and just network with other actors here in Houston. And one thing led to another, where after some coaching and after a lot of encouragement from my husband Daniel, who's also a voice actor, I went for it, and we actually got that audition together, and so we became professional voice actors through working at Sentai. But before that, I had never done any voice acting because I have a theater background, and so I did theater for a couple years here in Houston. Then I transitioned into short films, and that's kind of how I ended up here. Is just I love all sorts of acting and exploring different methods of it, and voice acting has definitely been one that I have enjoyed a lot.
What specifically has intrigued you over the years about acting in general? Why do you love acting?
I always say it's like the only thing that I really can do and be happy and just express myself in that way. But how I got interested in it was back in school. I mean, I think all of us have probably participated in a school play or two, but I think for me, when I got to do that in elementary, it just was kind of like, this is what I want to do. So my senior year of high school, I decided to just audition for the last play of that year. I didn't make that play, but I got into the UIL class, so I still got to do a show before I graduated high school. And so I was kind of, leaving high school, going into college, like, okay, what do I do now? Because I have fallen in love with acting. I know that it's what I want to do, but I am a biology major going into my first year of school. So one thing led to another. When I met Daniel, who also had a background in theater, we just both kind of bonded over our shared love of acting. The reason I love it so much is just that's just such a beautiful way to tell stories and connect with people. I think all of us probably have a character that we can relate to, whether it's TV, anime, books, movies. Like, we just can connect with them through the screen because we feel like, hey, like, I've been there, I've done that, and I think that's very special. And that's what I aim to do when I play a character, whether it's on the stage or behind the microphone in a booth. Like, I really hope that people can connect with my characters. But yeah, so Daniel and I connected over our love of acting, and we just started pursuing it together. So I switched majors. I got a bachelor's in fine arts, and then I just concentrated in theater. And that's kind of how I ended up here, is I made that decision to just kind of follow my own path. And I always knew since I was young that I wanted to act. So at some point in my early 20s, I was like, yep, it's time, and I'm just going to go for it full force.
So your husband, was he already in the voice acting space and led you into that?
I think he always knew that that was something that he wanted to do, but in terms of actually having done it at all professionally, no, he hadn't. And so when we met, we both had only theater credits under our belt, and it was together that we started doing short films. And then Daniel and I actually, we just wrapped shooting our first feature film together. So he's definitely a big reason why I've kind of gone off onto different paths of acting, because I think he and I are both equally curious about lots of things. So whenever we're curious about something, we're like, let's just do it together and, see how this goes. So it was kind of a very nice and smooth transition from theater to film to voice acting. And now that we're doing it, it truly has been a dream come true. I think he and I both have had lots of conversations about how our younger selves would be totally geeking out that we get to voice act in anime and do all this really cool stuff. Even though we haven't done it for long, it definitely is a passion of ours that we both share.
Would you say that there was any major differences that you noticed, things that you had to kind of work through from stage acting to film to on screen to voice acting?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're so similar, but they are also so different. Theater is a great place to build foundations of acting because that's where you do all of the prep work. Like, you're studying the play, you're studying your lines. When you're rehearsing, you have weeks to perfect something. And going from that to film, where everything was very much faster turnaround on projects, you'd still have to memorize lines, but maybe you don't get 2 or 3 weeks to rehearse your characters. Sometimes you're just thrown into a project on day one, and you kind of have to make those quick decisions. Film probably prepared me more for voice acting in that sense, because if you have the extremes of you have lots of time to prepare and no time to prepare, I think voice acting is like on this end. because you really have to make instant decisions about your character, about your voice, about everything. I would say that's probably the biggest difference. Also, the fact that theater, it kind of feeds actor ego of like we get to perform in front of people. Film still kind of has a little bit of that, but voice acting is like nobody's really watching you except the directors and the sound engineer. It's more intimate, I would say, because it's really just you and two or three other people in the room. When I go in there, I truly am just having fun for the love of the game and for love of acting. I think film and theater can definitely be more like, well, I'm trying to put on this performance and kind of, come across a certain way. I've found the most comfort with voice acting because that's truly where I feel I get to be myself.
Tell me about some of the projects you've been a part of and the characters that you've voiced.
I do get to voice a lot of high school girls and kind of young sounding girls. And I think that's just because my voice is naturally kind of, higher pitched and softer. And I only recently had my first named character in a show. So that was in Curio Fan Club, which is a show that's streaming on High Dive right now. And the dub episodes are coming out every week. I got to play a character named Aki. And Aki's just, this high school character. She's not a primary lead or anything, but I finally got to, play somebody who's in a couple episodes, and it was really fun just getting to do that. And then the coolest thing that I have done to this day through Sentai, I was able to be in Starbites, which is a video game. And I voiced a couple of NPCs, but one of them, her name was Nona, and she's like this librarian who, in the game she kind of comes up as a hologram, but she is just really smart and wants to like dissect things and understand them about the world around her, and I think that's super cool. And then Oshinoko, I didn't have any named characters, but I was in a majority of the season just through doing Walla and background voices. And that was a super cool project because it was actually the first time that I kind of got to see a show from beginning to end and be part of it. And it was just so cool. So those are some of the things I've done all within the past year. So, it's been a kind of a whirlwind, or I guess more like a roller coaster, because it definitely has its ups and downs, but it's been really fun.
For those who don't know what Walla is, can you explain that and what that experience is like?
Walla, I would describe it to somebody who's never heard of it as just the environment of anime. It's the people walking down the street, the people in the restaurant, it's your high school kids in the gym. It's all of those voices that make the anime feel so real and alive, because it's not just the main characters, it's all the people that are around them. So it's a lot of environment building. And my experience with that so far has just been, I use the word fun because that really is what it is. Like there's not this pressure of having to get lines perfect. There's almost a lot of improvisation that comes with Walla. You still have to, read lines. For example, in Curio Fan Club, there was a scene where we were cheering somebody on during a volleyball game. And there are lines, but there's also room for me to just come up with whatever I wanted to say. I thought that was really fun. So it's a very good way to kind of build your confidence in the booth. Those are definitely the moments where I've gotten to play the most and experiment with different types of voices, because there's not that pressure of like, oh, you have to do your voice a certain way for a certain character. You kind of get to blend in. So by blending in, I almost feel like you get to express yourself more and kind of try different things. So that's when I play the most, for sure.
What has your experience been like specifically with dubbing? Has that been a challenge at all for you, or how have you overcome some of those challenges that have come with that?
So that's a great question, because it actually has been one of the biggest challenges. And I think it's just because, for somebody like me, if you are going to school for acting, you kind of go in with this expectation that I'm going to learn all the things that I need to go out into the acting world. And unfortunately, a lot of actors can tell you that's sometimes just not true, especially depending on the type of program, what your focus was. You might not learn all of the kind of nitty-gritty about different types of acting. And for voice acting especially, I feel like my professors and the program that I was in focused so much on theater and film, the voice acting was just kind of never something we talked about. That's not to say anything negative on them, it just isn't part of the program. And so I say all this as context because when I went into this audition for Sentai, I had never done any ADR in my life. So all I had been told, and also like Googling and researching what it was, there was going to be like a countdown, and then I had to just start saying my lines, and they had to match up with the mouth flaps. And it was very stressful. I was very nervous about that because I felt like I had to get it perfect. Now that a year has passed and I look back, I can say honestly just how grateful I am that ADR directors, they know when you're green, when you're very new, and I think they are so helpful at just answering questions, and they come in with that understanding that not everybody has experience with ADR. So that's just, if anybody out there is kind of scared of trying it for the first time, I would tell them not to be, because a lot of people have grace for beginners. Now I would say it's a lot less daunting now that I know what I know. For example, you always usually have a couple seconds before you have to start, and it's better if you're a bit late on your take than early. Those like 3 or 4 seconds before I start, I definitely don't feel as much pressure as I used to. And also, it's not your job to edit yourself. Like, your job is to act and to read the lines. And that's something that I've learned honestly more in the past couple months from doing longer term projects. With Curio Fan Club, I've gotten to work with Shannon, and his engineer is Keegan. When I'm in the room with them, I've learned a lot of just my voice is kind of in their hands, and I'm just in charge of reading my lines. And I don't have to worry or stress or, am I doing this like too fast or too slow? Because they're taking care of everything on that end. They can speed stuff up, they can slow stuff down, they can cut. That's kind of the magic of sound engineering, and why it's so great also just to have them kind of as that backup for you as an actor. So it's definitely less daunting now, but before, yes, it was pretty scary. And I would say, if there's anybody that and I'm going to shout out Jay Lai, he actually took the time to meet with me on a Zoom and practice ADR with me, because I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I've heard you have a lot of experience with ADR. I don't, and I would love to learn some things from you. So he got together with me and taught me a couple of things that I didn't know before, and I got to practice some scripts. So huge shout out to him, because he helped boost my confidence so much with just practicing ADR. So honestly, that would kind of be my advice to anybody, is if you have a friend or a peer, mentor, somebody who's been in that world who knows ADR, get together with them and practice, because that's honestly the best way to learn, is just practicing.
Talk me through your audition process for some of the projects you've been in.
This is a very interesting topic for me, because the thing is, I want to do more voice acting outside of just, Sentai. But it's been very hard for me to audition. And maybe it's because I'm in a place where I just don't know where to go or start auditioning. Because the only voice acting auditions I've done outside of anime have been through ACX and other audiobook websites. I've tried like some stuff on Instagram. It's kind of that fear of like, okay, is this a legitimate voice acting audition website? Is it a scam? Are they using AI to like record my voice and without my permission? Right now, I'm kind of battling that and trying to get to a place where I make auditioning a regular part of my routine every day. So I can't fully and honestly answer your question, because I just haven't really been auditioning as much as I wish that I was. I am somebody who, definitely believes like if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish it. So I'm just gonna claim that I am gonna start auditioning for things. But when it comes to types of characters, there was one audition through Sentai that I got to do that was like an actual audition for a character. And it was interesting because it was for someone who was just kind of outside of my comfort zone in terms of what I'm used to. I'm used to playing very young, very sweet characters, and I feel like this person was more like mature and a little bit older. And I'm actually very curious to see, in the future, if they keep having me play these like high school girls, or if they would want me to kind of experiment with more mature and older sounding women, moms, teachers, that type of thing, maybe even antagonists, who knows. So far, I haven't gotten to do any of that, but I'm very curious to see where that goes. I think in theater, film, and in voice acting, my typecast is very young and sweet, and like kind of either ingenue or the kid or, the teenager. There was a staged reading that I did, and it's for a play that is hopefully actually coming out next year. The director's trying to actually get it put on, which is really exciting. But this character was like so opposite of what I'm used to. She was more sultry, she was more mysterious. So that was very shocking to me, because I was like, I'm used to just playing these teen girls, and this is very outside my comfort zone. It actually ended up being so much fun. And so I would love to just keep experimenting with what my typecast is and kind of stretch my voice and see what kinds of things that I could do. I think it comes with time, though. I don't think it's something you discover maybe in even your first, second, third year of voice acting. It probably takes a while to kind of find what you like and also what you're good at, which can sometimes be two very different things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Are you able to take any classes or get any coaching through Sentire somewhere else?
I've started looking into it actually. I did do coaching through Radio Lounge a couple months before the Sentai audition, but it is very far from where I live. I live kind of in the north part of Houston. So I've been looking kind of into like private coaching. I think that would kind of be the next place I try to do some classes. I really like a more intimate setting of kind of getting that one-on-one time with a coach instead of like a group class. So I'm definitely looking into it these days. And I think it's really important to have coaches, mentors, because one, it builds your confidence, and two, you have somebody for the most part who has a lot more experience than you do and can guide you through what this career is, because there is a business side of it. It's not just the fun and the creative, like there's definitely a business side to acting and to promoting yourself and auditioning. And I think that's kind of the stuff that you don't really learn without a little bit of mentorship from somebody, whether it's theater or film or voice acting. What has helped me learn the most has just been doing it. And I think classes are really important, but you also have to audition for plays, ask a friend who's doing a short film if you can be on set, or do like a fun voice acting project with your friends. Just actually doing it and practicing, I think, is the best way to learn for sure.
What's it like to be part of an indie film production?
My husband and I just wrapped on our first feature film. And we did it completely out of our own pockets. Like it was fully funded by us. And I would say the experience grows you and matures you so fast. And you learn so much in such a short period of time. Trial by fire is kind of what it's like, because there's not really a guide. Like there's no book really on like, hey, this is how you have a perfect indie production with no problems. Like there's always going to be things that happen on set, that happen behind the scenes, and you just kind of have to learn to adapt. When you find people who are passionate about that same vision, it's a very beautiful thing, and it truly does take a village, because a lot of the people on our project came in not expecting any pay, just knowing they were going to get fed and work on this really awesome project and get the credits for it. We're not this massive production who is able to like pay everybody. So it was a lot of just seeing how people would put their faith in us and support us. And then sometimes also just having to learn how to do things ourselves, especially when there's not that big budget for all the props or costumes that you want. You kind of have to learn to adapt and DIY and make the best of what you have. And that's honestly probably the most important thing, is making the best of with what you have. Whether it's the people in your life, that you know, the equipment that they have that they can share with you, or the locations that you know for sure you won't have any issues shooting in, or a script idea that you have had for a while. Like just work with what you have. If we had kept waiting, I don't think it ever would have gotten made. It was one of those where we had this great script that Daniel had written, and we were like, we have to make it now, because if we wait for that perfect time and perfect budget, it's just not going to happen. So we were just like, let's do it now. And I'm so grateful that we did. It couldn't have been at a better time with a better team. I think for anybody who's wanting to get into indie filmmaking, whether it's for a short film or a feature, it's about finding the right people who are going to stick with you through that project, support you, and also give you grace, because, you know, we're all on that same boat trying to make something come to life. And so having people by your side that are gracious and are patient, that makes a world of a difference.
What's your advice for beginning voice actors or people who maybe are on the fence or not really sure where to start?
Anybody who's wanting to get started with voice acting or just acting in general, and maybe they've been too scared or told that, you know, it's not something that they can do, whether it's too late and you can't act, or, you know, how are you going to do that and juggle all these other things? The biggest thing is like, don't listen to anybody else's voice. If it's something that you want to do and you know deep down you want to give it a try, you just have to do it and kind of shut out all that negativity. And sometimes that negativity isn't somebody speaking badly to you. Sometimes it's you speaking badly to yourself. And I think I've struggled a lot with that, and I'm definitely in a place where I'm trying to be better with negative self-talk and building myself up with my words, because at the end of the day, every voice actor, every film theater actor, we all had to start somewhere. So it's important that you just get started. And you know, in my case, I didn't really have that support until I met Daniel, and it does make a big difference to have even just one person in your corner telling you can do it. But sometimes you have to be that person saying, I can do this and I can go for it and give it a try. Sometimes you really do just need to turn off your your socials or like get off there for a while. For me, there's been a lot of struggle with comparison even before I started voice acting. And the thing is that we all, as creatives, I think one point or another, we all struggle with that. You know, if you're following somebody and every time you see their posts or their stories, it makes you feel insecure or like you're starting to doubt your own worth, maybe unfollow that person or mute their stories for a while and just focus on yourself. The thread through both of those things is like to really just focus on your own path and listen to yourself. Don't let that negativity or that comparison stop you from doing what you love, because there's definitely a world where I could have been like, okay, you know what? I've never voice acted a day in my life. I'm not going to go for this Sentai audition because I'm just going to make a fool of myself. And then I wouldn't have done any of the cool things that I've gotten to do. So sometimes you just have to shut everything out and just do it and not listen to negativity.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been a great conversation.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much. This has been so fun.